Cool. How you doing, Chris?
Really good. How are you, pal?
All right, thanks. All good. All good. So yeah, let's see where these take us. I've been keen to do some videos for a while, and I always feel it's a bit better just to talk about subjects that we often get asked about, and actually go into a little bit more depth into it, just to really explain things. So, as we are web designers, web developers, we always get asked all the time, "Oh, okay, so the SEO is included, right?" And it's like, well, no, kind of is. We do some bits, and I think it's very difficult to really explain the full spectrum of what SEO is. It's an enormous space, right? So as our SEO partner, Chris, we've had loads of conversations about this, haven't we? Is kind of right. How do we explain it? How do we get people to understand it without being overwhelming, or people results for things, right? And they don't necessarily need to know all the ins and outs. But this is what brought us round to, well, I was pushing for it. We made a lot of tweaks, so thanks for bearing with me, Chris. But we put together this graphic just to kind of explain a little bit. I don't know if you want to get this up on screen, Chris, and we can just talk around it.
Yeah, okay.
So, I mean, this was really interesting for me as well to sort of figure out, okay, well, what is it? Which bits do we actually do? There's kind of a bit of crossover here, but then really, I've highlighted the bits we do just in orange, and as you can see, it's just a very small part of it. But it's just the on-site stuff we look at, so site maps, speed optimization. Speed's the name of the game these days. Efficient coding. Generating landing pages, lead generation, blogs and guides. But, as you can probably explain next, none of that really is, well, not that it's not relevant, but you've got to start from somewhere, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a difficult question to ask, because it's even more difficult to answer. The full breadth of what's included within SEO is astonishing, and I've been in the game for a good amount of time, possibly 18 plus years, I think. And every single day we're still learning, and we're adding more and more into our mix of what we do as SEOs within our company. It's never going to stop. It just goes on and on and on. And again, what we need to do as SEOs changes constantly too. However, there's a broad amount of actions that we do on a regular basis, which we can kind of boil down and explain today. So
just before we get stuck into it, I just want to say as well, as we looked at long years ago as well, and things were a bit simpler then. There's always a lot to do. I actually went on a course with one of my clients. Pick up to yourself, Dave. We both left. We were like, wow, yeah, no way. I'm out. It was just there's just so much to do. We want to focus on what we're experts in, and then work with experts in that side of things. So.
Yeah. And I think that's a big subject, honestly. And I say it all the time to our clients. We are SEO specialists. We've got a team of people who are dedicated to doing SEO day in and day out. So when people do try to bolt it on and say that they're offering the full service of SEO, that's a real challenge, because it takes so much work in so many different areas of SEO. Sometimes clients think that they're getting a full SEO service, whereas in reality, they do need to work with specialists to be able to get everything truly done.
I mean, we often say, that goes to our SEO guy. So how many people in your team, Chris?
15.
15, yeah, all specialists in different areas, right?
Yeah, they all do their separate part, and we've got a few people doing each part of it. You don't need a team of 15, but definitely you need a good 4 or 5 people within a good SEO team to provide the very best results. That's for sure. So really, we split SEO into two main sections: on-site SEO and off-site SEO. On-site SEO is obviously everything that's happening on the website, which affects your SEO results, and off-site SEO is everything that's happening away from your website that affects your SEO results. You can see within this diagram that we have content separate, and we have kind of strategy separate and results separate, which makes sense in terms of a diagram like this. But truly, in terms of things that we're going to do, action-wise, we have on-site and off-site. Now, everything that you have highlighted there in the darker orange, which obviously you guys do incredibly well, that affects the SEO side of things as well. We happen to work very closely together with a lot of our clients. And all of these parts are absolutely essential. The most important thing I'd say when we're talking about on-site SEO is content. So you can kind of split on-site SEO into two halves. The first half is the technical side of things, and the second half is the content side of things. When it comes to technical side of things, we're talking about tweaking the parts that are already there, really, and making sure that what the website is doing and what the website is saying or signaling to Google matches up with what the website's trying to get found for. So we're not talking about fixing any issues technically. Excuse me, my phone's going off. I'm not talking about fixing any issues, but it's about tweaking things to make sure that it supports what we're trying to get found for.
Do you know what? This was something really interesting when we first started working together, about 4 years ago now, I think it was. In that, you can't be all things to all people. What's your strategy? What are your pillars? And I was like, I've built this content. It's like, well, some of it can be tweaked, but some of it's kind of not relevant to our strategy. And that was the game changer to me in terms of, right, well, what is your focus? What are there any sectors, any services you're really pushing? And that made so much more sense to me. So,
yeah. So, honestly, we could talk for hours and hours and hours about this. So we've got to be a little bit careful.
Don't worry, we won't.
We don't want to do that. But on the technical side of things, there's a lot that's involved. But that it might cover things like XML sitemaps and robots.txt files and things like that. All the types of things that you already set up for your clients, and most web design companies will do. When we come in, we go in and we're tweaking what's on there, and we're deciding, okay, this is relevant for this campaign because we've done the strategy. This might not be relevant, and because of how we want to approach and get these results for the clients, then we're making decisions along the way. And none of that can happen without having that strategy in place. So that's where we come in, and depending on the website that's already been produced, we are making tweaks and making decisions along the way to get the results that we need. And then there's things along the journey as well. So obviously you will be producing websites for your clients, producing landing pages and things like that. Well, then we come along, and it's about considering which pages are appropriate for the strategy and the campaign, which ones we want to show on Google, which ones don't, which pages would be associated to one another, and when we start to make silos and things like that. So it's about structuring that content, linking it together in a particular way. So in broad terms, on-site SEO is about content, and it's about some of the technical things that are showing signals to Google. The most important part of that is the content, because effectively Google is a content delivery system. So Google is trying to choose out of the trillion web pages out there, which is the best website for that particular search term. So it's got quite a hard job, Google has, but it's got an incredibly strong algorithm that helps it make those decisions along the way. Our job as an SEO is to make sure that the content on the website, which is already probably fantastic, we need to make sure that it's suited to the searches that are being made specifically.
So there's one comment on content specifically, actually, which is a lot of people say, our site's got too much content, there's too much there. And I've always thought there's no such thing as too much content. It's about how you deliver it, making it bite-sized, make it relevant, punchy headlines, but not just punchy headlines, Is it an H1, H2, H3? What's it for? What story is it telling? And I'll also always encourage pushing that, get as much as you can in. We will then design it in such a way that it's, easy to read and digest, but also in a way that Google can consume it too. So, it's making sure it's suiting your audience, but also Google's algorithms and
the
rest, I guess.
Honestly, that's a difficult thing from an SEO perspective, because we often see when a website goes, especially for well-established websites, at some point or many points along the life journey of that business, they decide to have a real culling of their content. And it generally happens when they're working with a company like yours and they're deciding to do a redesign. And they look at all of their content and they go, okay, so that's out of date, that's not relevant, we've got too much of this, let's remove that, let's simplify it, let's make the user journey a lot easier to kind of go through that journey. And that's all well and good, but some of that content might actually be having an important role within the search engine optimization process. So, so we like to be involved with a redesign process as early on as possible, so that we can say, okay, we'll do an audit of the content. We'll be able to then tell you how a particular piece of content or how all of the content is working towards the SEO or not. Sometimes, and a lot of the times, we do find content that's not helpful, it's not helping, and actually it'd be better for that to be removed from Google. But then we can also say, look, this is valuable. This page is getting some organic traffic. This page has some backlinks pointing to it. This page is adding some topical relevance, or whatever it might be. We can say, look, this might not be the type of content that you want at the very top of your homepage or in your menu system or your blogs. However, it is important to some users and some searches and things like that. So we can lower it down the hierarchy and effectively remove it from the view of everybody going to the website, but then still keep it there for the sake of SEO. Yes,
exactly. Yeah, that was really interesting to me, especially when we're redesigning a site. It's like, right, let's make sure there's redirects in place. That's really, really important. I say you don't want to lose any equity in a previous site, right? So
that's it. Yeah, that's a subject on its own. So, and we should probably talk about this in the future. But what we call SEO migration. So, as soon as you have a new website that is getting redesigned, a website that's getting redesigned or moving to a different domain, we have to consider the SEO that was already in place and make sure that during the transition of a new design or a new domain, we are taking as much as that value as possible, so that when that update goes live, we're not losing the SEO. We move forward rather than backwards. I think the assumption is generally new is better. We've got a new amazing website. It looks better. The messaging's better. Positioning's perfect. But from an SEO perspective, unless that's considered, there can be losses along the way.
And you know what? This is something I'll say all the while is you can have the best looking site in the world, which we can create for you, of course. But unless someone's finding it, it's it's a pretty picture, nothing more. So
absolutely. So I think that probably summarizes what on-site SEO is quite well. The other side of it is off-site SEO. So like I said, that's everything that's happening away from the website. There's a lot to off-site SEO. There's lots of different signals. So I think signals are the best way to explain it. We need to give Google, or whichever search engine we're interested in at the time, we have to give that search engine as many signals and positive information and confirmation that this website is relevant and an authority on particular keywords, particular searches. Offsite SEO is incredibly important for that. The most important part of that is proving authority to Google. And generally, there's lots of parts of it, but the most important part of that is backlinks. So a lot of people listening to this will understand what a backlink is. Some may not. The best way to explain it is any link, hyperlink on the internet that takes you from one page to another. You're reading some content, it says, go see this website, and there's a link and you click it. That's a link. It goes from one website to another. So we consider that to be a backlink. Now, the reason that's so important is because basically the internet is made up of links. It's the World Wide Web. And without that web of links going from one web page to another, and actually Google's full of links, right? Every time you click on a listing that goes to a website, that's a link. Without those links, there's no web within the World Wide Web. And it's an incredibly good signal to Google that people care about that page, people care about that website and that brand. They're mentioning it, and they're willing to share some of their traffic, some of their users on that particular page with the page that they're linking to. So as soon as somebody's willing to do that, it's a really good sign that that web page is related to this content. And we like and think it's of value to the people, the users, the readers of that page. So that's basically a backlink, and that's why it's really, really important.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of, I think people know a lot of the buzzwords and the phrases, but actually what is it and what does it do is really important here. I'm sure many business owners will have emails all the while saying, oh, we can write this, can you link back to this? You know, sometimes they're good, sometimes they're not, and this is something we always check with you guys. So
and that's a really good point, because I think some people try to shortcut this process a lot, and as they learn how SEO works, they kind of think, well, okay, so these things are really important, so we'll just do these things. And the problem is that it's just not as simple as that. Unfortunately, we all wish it was as simple as that, but choosing which website links to you and making sure that they are an authoritative website and they are relevant, and those websites don't have negative signals which will harm your SEO is really important. And we have, for every step that we do within the SEO process, we have lists and lists of things that we need to consider before we take that action. And I think really probably the reason we have to do that is because there's been so many SEOs over the years who have tried to trick the system and look for loopholes within SEO and found a loophole and was able to get these web pages and these websites up to the top of Google overnight through illegitimate actions. And then Google's found the loophole and then it shut the loophole, and suddenly all those websites fall down. So nowadays, our job as a proper SEO agency isn't to trick Google, and it isn't to try and get overnight success that lasts for 5 days or a week or two. Our job is to make sure ultimately that we are producing the best content possible for those particular search terms, and making sure that Google can see all of the signals, trusts our website. And when you do that properly, you end up with gaining a huge amount of organic traffic to your website, and you keep that authority forever, and it can make a huge impact on a website, on a business.
Yeah, I suppose one thing to put this into perspective as well is a lot of this is about creating sort of longer term evergreen stuff in terms of content, I guess. And this is what I've really been thinking about a lot more in terms of, creating content and more content ourselves is, will it be relevant in the future? Sometimes you don't always know if things change, but it's, making sure it is good quality, right? Not just, lost my tangent now. It's all going so well.
Well, when one of the problems that we've seen over the years is that people have learned that they need to produce content as part of their SEO process, and they hear that fresh content is important. So a few years back, probably a good 10 years back now, the process that everybody started going through was to produce as many 350-word blog posts as possible. And the internet went from just a few people producing really good content and a few people producing terrible content to everybody producing mediocre content and just churning it out every single week another 350 word post, article, and blog that was just accidentally very similar to their competitor, their neighbors, or whoever, similar kind of business. And the problem with that, in the end, is that everybody who's producing content, Google recognise that it's all a load of rubbish. So then Google decides to only give any SEO benefit to the content that's really long form. So then everybody starts going across and starts producing 2,000 word articles and having the ultimate guide on everything. And then Google and everyone starts doing that. And then people kind of realize, well, that's quite a lot. And you don't always need the ultimate guide for things. And sometimes you just need a really good piece of content that covers one area of things very, very well. It just goes on. The cycle's endless. So
this is coming back to, I suppose, knowing your niche, what are you specialists in, right? It is a good, but actually, let's bring it back. Let's dial it back a little bit, actually, and say, where do you start with SEO strategy? What's the process? Well, I think we can expand on more of these areas and on different sessions. But, someone who's never done it before, where do you start? How do you approach strategy?
Okay, so the first thing to do is to have a good understanding of what's already working, where you're getting traffic from already, understanding the basics of what's happening on the website. So knowing which content's working well for you, understanding where the gaps are within your content, understanding technically what's working for and against you, and then doing the same on the offsite side of things. Excuse me. Okay. So understanding the links that are coming to you, understanding and seeing, analyzing the links that your competitors are getting, seeing which of those are valuable and which ones you should have, and things like that. So it's an initial real audit of where you're at. You find out where the gaps are. You're comparing your SEO and your gaps and spaces compared to the competitors. And your job is, as an SEO, to then build up all of those factors over time, improve things until then you have more signals, more ticks, and compared to your competitors, and that's when you're going to start winning.
Excellent.
SEO is easy. There you go, done.
Yeah, just press that button. Just do that. Start your strategy button, right? There's an AI for that, right? That's a whole other
that's another conversation we need to have.
Yeah. Cool. Well, I think that's a really good explanation. This diagram, I mean, this is about version 8 or 9, I think, of this, and we were kind of doing a screenshot at one point, moving bits around, and it's not complete by any means, but I think this certainly helped me frame it in terms of what we do, what we talk about. I think it's I don't know if it's helped or hindered me doing this, but
it's sparked this conversation, hasn't it? So I think that's
exactly. Exactly. So I think let's catch up on some other sessions. Dive a bit deeper into other areas of it. I mean, certainly the initial strategy side of things is fascinating, especially if you don't have a website already. If you're starting out, I'm sure that's got a very different approach. So awesome. Thanks, Chris. That's been really good.